What is happening, everybody? Merry Christmas. Well, for me it's Christmas anyway. It's Christmas Day here. I'm sitting by the river. I stayed in Poland this time, and I'm sitting here watching various paraphernalia and wildlife floating along by down the river. And as I often do, I tend to show up for new videos without a sense of what to talk about until the very last minute. So I've been sitting here reflecting for a couple of minutes, thinking about what to say. And I thought, let's take a look around in the environment and see what prompts particular insights and ideas. And seeing these ducks float by on the river, it's got me thinking about this idea of surrendering to the flow of life, right? It's a good metaphor weaved in there. How can I turn this into an interesting video? Well, we're approaching the end of the year. Some of you might be watching this at different times, but we're approaching the start of a new year, a time when people tend to get a little bit more alert and aware around what they want to create in their lives, which direction they want to take, what goals they want to set. And I wanted to talk about how we can marry this idea of surrendering to life and the flow of life and the benefits of that. Many of you have heard me talk about things to that effect, you know, the benefits of not being too dependent on outcomes, right? Because if we get too dependent, we put a lot of pressure on ourselves and we end up disrupting our performance through the process. We make ourselves stressed, and of course when we're in a stressed state, we tend not to do so well when we're aiming for things. But we also benefit from setting goals, right? We benefit from knowing what we want to do, where we want to go, having some clarity on that. How do we bring the two together? How do we bring Ducky Duck over there to final destination in a way that works? The way I see it, the way that's worked for me, when I have entertained it, when I've used it, when I've incorporated it actively with awareness in my own life, is it's all to do with how things are going to be done. So I think setting goals is important. Having an objective is important. If you go for a hike, you want to know where you're going. You want to know where the final stay is going to be, so that you have some sense of what's going on in the hike. You know, what's the direction, what route are you going to take? But there could be a few different routes, and that's the key thing here, and that applies to life as well. You want to have a direction. You want to have something that you're looking forward to, that you wake up in the morning thinking about, that gets you out of bed, gets you excited, and gets you motivated about being alive. You know, it's very much in alignment with how we've evolved as people, as humans. We've always had objectives. No matter, you know, what point in history we've been in, we've had things that we've determined are important, are priorities for us, and we have gotten out of bed in the morning to go and hunt that animal, to go and build that hut, to go and build that income generating business. It's given us a sense of purpose. It's gotten us to do things. It's gotten us to move. It's gotten us to engage with the world, and that's what's enlivening, and that's important. So setting objectives, good, but we can often get hung up on the how. How do we do this? Well, some people will set a goal and they'll be very, very hung up on exactly how they're going to do it. So I've got this plan, I've got the blueprint, I've written it all out, and I'm going to go hell for leather on this target. And then things don't go to plan in the way they had envisioned it, and they get upset with themselves. I've been there many times, don't know about you, but I've been there many, many times, where I've had a vision and I've had a path that I've plotted out, and I've said, this is how I'm going to make it work. I'm assuming it's going to work well that way. And now that I've started doing it and things aren't really panning out, things aren't really meeting my expectations. So I'm getting stressed here, guys. I'm getting annoyed with myself. I'm falling short of these ideas and targets that I've created in my own mind. Isn't that kind of ridiculous? We create a target that we've made up out of thin air like a magician. And we said, this is what I'm going for. I'm going to be earning $100,000 every year by the end of this year. But I'm not on track for that. I'm not doing the things that I said I would do, and the way that I would do it in, the technique I would use in order to get this money. It's not working for me. So I'm annoyed. And I'm going to either quit or get very angry with myself and people around me. So that's where surrender comes in. That's where accepting reality for what it is and what it shows us, taking on the feedback that life gives us. That's what I'm talking about when we want to take a more of a float along the river approach. This is what floating along, this is how it can serve us, because it's going to prompt us into adapting ourselves to the situation, adapting and going with the flow, as opposed to resisting the flow and saying, no, this isn't how I wanted things to go, therefore I'm going to resist. Resistance is the enemy of any forward progression in life. And we know resistance intimately because we're human beings, and we tend to get in our heads, we tend to have ideas about how things should be. We hold a lot of shoulds in our heads, and that gives us something to resist. That gives us something to push back against, and push back is a forceful activity that tends to make ourselves physically uptight, and physical uptightness is the enemy to progress, action, free-flowing creativity. We're looking for creative insight as we progress here. This is our number one tool as humans, is that we need a constant flow of creativity coming up to serve us the level of mind, showing us the way. But if we're uptight and stressed, those channels are blocked. And so when we're resisting in the process of getting towards our goals, we're not going to reach them. That's why so many of us struggle with reaching goals, and we say goals are useless, they don't work. Well, they don't work when we're grinding our way towards an idea in our heads. We can still have goals. We can still say, I want to go to Marbella in 2 weeks. How I'm going to get there, well, that's up for grabs. I'm going to keep moving, and if I come against a wall, I'm not going to get upset. I'm going to shimmy along, and I'm going to bypass that wall. I'm going to surrender to what life's giving me. This is incredibly powerful, and it seems to many that this is a sort of passive, weak approach. And why would you surrender? You've got to be, straight in. You've got to be forceful, driving. You've got to be a driving force. You can still have a driving aspect to living. And how do you combine surrender with driving? Well, driving in the sense that you take off the brakes. You don't necessarily need to rev the accelerator to get momentum in your life and lots of good forward momentum and movement. All you need to do is stop putting blocks in your way. Stop allowing yourself to self-sabotage. Stop allowing yourself to judge self based on an imaginary idea of what you should be doing with your life. Have a target, but keep moving, and surrender to what life is showing you is the best way to get there. And if after a lot of surrender, the goal is very clearly apparently not the right thing for you, then you can surrender on that too, and that's fine as well. But I wouldn't throw out the idea of objectives, having targets and goals completely. You could take a completely goal-free approach and just surrender your way through as what's his face? The surrender experiment guy, and it's Michael something. Can't remember his name at the moment. The untethered soul guy, Michael Wisher or something his name is. He talks about basically how he accepted his way through and everything kind of came to him without even needing to set targets. That's fine too, but that's not to say that you can't benefit greatly from saying, I want to write this book by the end of the year. I have an objective to write a book, and I'm going to do it in a way that is not dependent on the book being a certain way, although books probably could use a certain more of a sense of clarity and detail than other things. But again, this is something that's going to come down to you ultimately in your own sort of discernment around how much detail a particular goal requires of you. But I just wanted to bring this idea to the fore that a lot of us get, just to wrap up, a lot of us get very hung up on the how things are going to be done. And when things don't pan out, when things seemingly fall off the track, or we get an obstacle in the way of our targets, we get thrown off and we get annoyed and we get frustrated and we get uptight, which is the exact thing you don't want when you're trying to make progress. Instead, surrender to what life's showing you, be open to what life gives you, be open to the data and the information as it comes through, and use that to find your own ideal process that you can then use to reach whatever target you're looking for. Interesting talking point, nevertheless. Would love to hear your thoughts, comments, ideas on this down below. Are you using this technique? Are you surrendering your way through life, or are you very, very hell-bent on things being a very specific way, and is it working for you? Merry Christmas, guys. Happy New Year. It's been a pleasure making videos for you guys. I'm also doing a lot of writing over at Medium and Twitter, so make sure you're following me there as well. My newsletter is, you'll find it at Substack. It's Untethered Mind. Lots of stuff about psychology and the kinds of stuff that I talk about on videos. Make sure you're subscribed over there and subscribed over here as well. All the best, guys. Take care.